Hi, it's Worth from Singing Streets, the music tourist app. We are here at the King and Queen on Foley Street. This is where Bob Dylan first came to perform in London. He was here to perform in a play, and a couple days earlier knew about the folk club that was held upstairs by Martin Carthy. Carthy actually saw him in the audience and said he had just seen him on the cover of that month's Sing Out magazine, the New York magazine, and he said, "You're Bob Dylan." And he said, "Do you want to sing a few songs later?" And Dylan, of course, was in town to do just that, get around as much as possible. Dylan apparently sang the Talkin' John Birch Society Paranoid Blues, which is one of my favorite songs. It didn't come out until much later, but it was meant to be on Freewheelin' Bob Dylan. And it's also where Dylan heard Carthy play Lord Franklin, which inspired the music for Bob Dylan's Dream. This is amazing. We're following Bob's steps in London in December 1962 into 1963. So come along with us, and we'll see all the places Dylan played. Okay, so before we move on, we just noticed this fun fact. One of the architects over here is called Llewellyn Davies. And you have to imagine that the Coen brothers used that as the basis for Llewyn Davis. Inside Llewyn Davis, great recreation of the New York folk scene, and also an appearance at the very end with the young Bob Dylan, who basically wiped Llewyn off the stage and ruined his career. Hi, just as an addendum to our video, we just talked to the very friendly barman who led us upstairs to where Martin Carthy's folk club was, and Bob Dylan played right here. This is the very first performance of Bob Dylan. This is right where he played, Talking John Birch Society Paranoid Blues. The day after Dylan played the King and Queen, he came here to the Pindar of Wakefield, as it was called at the time. It's the Water Rats now. And the Singers Club was operated upstairs by Ewan McCall and Peggy Seeger. Dylan came. He was initially turned away at the door, but Peggy got him in because her brother Pete was a big fan of Dylan's at the time. Dylan's apparently sang Masters of War here and the Ballad of Hollis Brown. And many say this was his first appearance, but it was actually the King and Queen the night before. Pindar of Wakefield was bought by the Grand Order of Water Rats in 1986, and it's still their headquarters. And Martin Carthy definitely confirms that this was Dylan's second performance in London. Hi, it's Worth from Singing Streets, the music tourist app. We are at the Troubadour. On the 29th of December, 1962, Bob Dylan played his first ever gig in London. He had played a few nights before at the King and Queen, but this, on the 29th, was his very first gig in London. He performed under the name Blind Boy Grunt. And Pete Seeger had told him to seek out the Troubadour, seek out Anthea Joseph at the Troubadour. He sang The Death of Emmett Till, Ballad of Hollis Brown, and a song that Martin Carthy initially assumed was the traditional ballad Lord Randall. Turned out that it was The Hard Rain's Gonna Fall, which Dylan had used the same music for. Amazing location in London. Check out Singing Streets. I'm checking into it on the app right now. After his first gig, as we've just seen at the Troubadour, Dylan came the next day, 30th of December, to do what he came to London to do, which was to star in a play. He'd been seen in New York by the director, Philip Saville, and he came here to BBC Television Centre. It's beautiful. It's now flats, but and from 1960 until 2013, it was actually the center for all television production and filming for the BBC. It's very cool. But Dylan came here to film Madhouse on Castle Street, and he proved incapable of delivering his lines, so they basically made him into a kind of Greek chorus. He played his songs, and another actor delivered his lines. And the song that he had just, I guess he had just finished it, and he was staying with Philip Saville for a little while, and he had just finished Blowin' in the Wind. And Blowin' in the Wind ended up being the first song played and the very last for Dylan. And it ended up being broadcast on, what was it, the 13th of January, 1963. Sadly, the tapes were destroyed, or junked actually, in 1968, and no copies exist, although there are few audio recordings. But this is BBC Television Centre, where Bob Dylan filmed Madhouse on Castle Street. Just a short walk away from the Troubadour is 9 Tregunter Road. This was the home of Rory McEwen, who later hosted Hullabaloo. And the Chelsea townhouse was owned by his parents. And on December 31st, 1962, Richard Farina and Eric von Schmidt came here. They were doing a tour of London and were asked to stay here. They found out that Dylan was playing at the Troubadour just down the street and left a note for him to come over on the 31st. I think it was a few days later that Dylan took them up on the offer, turned into a 3-day party. Apparently Robert Graves, the famous poet and author who wrote I, Claudius, met Dylan here, and he and Dylan went for a stroll nearby. Dylan was initially upset because he had interrupted one of his songs, and he was very upset about that. He stopped it and said, "Who was that?" But then it was Robert Graves, and so all was forgiven. And apparently The White Goddess, which was Robert Graves' book that had just been reissued at the time, heavily influenced Visions of Joanna. So we're on a Bob Dylan walk, and this has been fantastic.